Denise preached.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so she gave a great message. It was so good that one of our, well, how old is she rather? She might be 4, told her father, and the father told me, he says, I like church today. It was fun. So,
And of course, that's because she was the person who was presenting the message, right?
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And talked about the race and had some of the kids racing in the church.
Okay.
And it was a good message. It was a good message.
So I want to ask you a question about your youth ministry at your church.
Mm.
Who is managing it at this point?
Well, right now it is on hiatus. Um, since the pandemic, we had to stop the youth ministry.
Okay.
And now it's just getting back underway. And I'm trying to think who would be leading that at this time. It's not me, it's not Carrie. It's I guess it could be our other members. But right now it's been on hiatus.
Well,
And
well,
yeah, you know,
Steve, let me stop you there. Our youth ministry has been on hiatus, and once the church came back, we actually didn't have a person who was going to be able to manage it and run it. So we're not seeing a lot of children in the service at this time. And for a former youth pastor, you know how difficult that is to
oh yeah,
not have a youth ministry functioning and active in the church.
right. Hmm. Um, yeah, it is. It's just I got the youth. I got the youth, and just finding somebody who's going to be committed to it. You know, that's one of the problems that we have.
Yeah, but
But
how
go
can we
ahead.
have how can we have two former youth pastors? We're two former youth pastors who had young people in our churches, and
Yeah.
today they're not there the way that they were.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh, you know, I don't know. You know, there's a part of me that, you know, that wants to grab our youth and shake them and give them a ministry, give them, because as you know, even better than me, that youth ministry isn't is not just um you know, I don't even know how to put it, but it's something that's needed in the church because actually, to be perfectly honest, the church, uh, every church needs a youth minister and someone who could relate to the church. And I feel bad that I haven't gone out to find somebody or you know it just can't be like this.
Well, Stephen, my thought regarding a youth pastor has been, and again, part of it is not having the finances to be able to offer a youth pastor a stipend or a wage to keep them there, right? To
Right,
offer them that, number one. Number two,
right,
they said, well, go to the seminary, go to the Bible school, see if you can find somebody there. And again, to me, it's the same problem. they're not coming for nothing. You know, it'd be one thing if you had 1,000 young people in your church and a person studying youth ministry would want to come just to learn how you did that. So you don't have to pay me. I just want to be in this environment. Number two, I have found that a number of the youth pastors, if they're seminary trained, if they're Bible college trained, majority of them do not want to be a youth pastor for the rest of their lives. They're looking to become a pastor. So you're going to have somebody that's going to come in, start something, and then they're going to exit. How long they'll be with you, you don't know. But that coming in and exiting. So I was praying and hoping that our next youth pastor would come organically, come from the congregation, that there would be some mothers or fathers that are in the church. They're not looking to be the pastor, you know, unless there's a serious problem in the church. They're not planning to leave. And they're good with young people. Someone's going to give you 20 years, 25-year commitment.
Wow.
Like I did. You know, I didn't want to be a senior pastor. I just wanted to work with young folk in the church because my life was changed through the youth ministry. I felt that that was the best avenue. So it's been a struggle now, not having the person to work with the youth and the youth saying, I don't even need this building. I can entertain myself. So that's a struggle that I'm dealing with, and I don't have the answer for it in our church.
And yet,
Hey guys, I'm on if you can hear me.
We can hear you loud and clear. Very good.
And yet, the actual time for a youth pastor is 9 months. And, you know, you can't get to know your youth in 9 months. You have to look at a commitment of years that you are actually following them to from high school to college, and you're actually, you know, doing that with them. And right now we don't have anybody to do that, and it's badly needed in the church.
Well, the future of the church is in jeopardy. The ministry of the church, not the church, but the ministry of the church is in jeopardy without having young people in your congregation. But again, I do see, at least online, I do see young people or young adults filling churches. And the pastors are not too far from their age. But one of the things that I have found in looking at this is that a lot of these pastors find themselves in trouble, moral trouble, financial trouble. You know, that they're not perfect people, like we're not perfect people, but they're messing up. But it seems like the more that they mess up and they come back on Sunday mornings and they're preaching to those young people are excited about that pastor. They don't look at the character stuff the way that we do. They don't look at those flaws like we do. They are looking at the pastor and saying, you know what, that pastor's just like me. But I don't know if I accept that. I don't know if I could have a pastor on the staff who habitually is getting in trouble, messing up, and having the kids say, but that pastor reminds me of me. That's what I want.
Yeah, no way. You have to protect, we have to protect children from people like that. So we can't have youth pastors who are immoral or even worse, you know, seducing young people, because that happens too.
Yeah, it does. You know, it's one thing, for example, I'm going to push the church to take the kids somewhere to do something with them. But anybody who works with young people has to have a Corey check. Everybody.
Yeah.
Even if you're the child's mother, if you're coming on that trip, if you're going to be with us, I need a Corey, because if something happens, the question at the court levels is not going to be, are you guilty for not fulfilling your obligation to these young people? Is how much is the financial award going to be for these families? Because you messed up, and even our insurance, there's a sexual abuse protocol that you have to fill out if you want your church to be insured. You've got to have a protocol, and you've got to follow it. If you don't follow that protocol, you're done. If something happens.
You know, one of the first things I did when I came back to Calvary was to write a whole issue on the sexual protocol, and even to the point that because we had one guy in the church who I don't doubt his love for the people, but he would just do stupid things. He would, grab people, basically your ladies, and would hold them. And he says, "Well, I just want them to know that I'm with them." And it got really.
That's crazy.
It got really, got really dangerous. So we wrote this thing on, and even for the young kids, because that's where it starts. But we wrote this thing how you cannot go in the ladies' room when one of the kids are in there, or and that have two people with you when you do this.
Right.
And again, don't do those things because it could lead. You got kids nowadays that they could be vicious and could accuse you of this and that, and it could turn into oh Lord.
That's why. That's why when I was working with young people at 12th Baptist Church, I was the youth pastor, but I had a team of 14 people who worked with me. And so there was very seldom, it was just me. I always had people with me and around me. And I tried, when we were driving, we had a couple vans and cars taking the kids home after an event. I tried to make sure there was somebody else in the van with me. I didn't want to be alone. I honestly wouldn't consider being a youth pastor today.
Well, you're too old for one thing.
You know what? Stephen, Pastor Randy told me that he's in South is it South Carolina? He's at?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
And he proved it by actually on his screen. I was able to see him. There was water behind him. He was at a beach.
Oh my goodness.
I said to him, "I'm in South Africa," and he laughed. And I said, "Look, the water behind me." He said, "The only problem with your water is your water keeps repeating itself. The water keeps coming up. It's the same water coming up to the same place, and it repeats itself." So
that's right.
So, Pastor Mandy and Stephen, one of the other struggles that I've had in my life, and don't use that as a way of coming at me, is sometimes I say, I'm just going to do what Grover Wilcox did. And that is, if I'm correct, didn't he lead the youth ministry at the church?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did, And, well, we also need to understand now is that some of our youth can be danger, to the church and things like that because of moral issues. But, Grover Wilcox did that. And he did that from the early 50s. And it wasn't until I, went through my own horror story and came back that I was the youth pastor. He never liked to call it that, but but that was like almost like 30 years.
So how old was he when he was when he stopped leading the youth ministry? What was the age?
That he stopped leading the youth ministry?
Yeah.
He was in his 60s.
Wow. See, again, in my mind, I say, I know how to do this. I can do this. But my body would never be able to sustain that work right now. So I got a conflict going on in my life, looking at what I know what can be done. I know what can be done with those young people. I know how to pull them, but I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the conversation you guys were having about hiring a youth pastor.
Okay. All right.
You know, I do think as senior pastors, you have the authority and you have the responsibility to cast that vision to your congregation. You know, they're looking to you for leadership to say, youth ministry is something we must continue to pursue. And we've got to find the people that God will raise up to help us do it, whether they're internal, like the people that Bruce would really love to have, people who are organic to the ministry, or we need to do a search to find somebody who is willing to stay here. And I would say the minimum commitment you need from a youth pastor is 5 years. And I say that because essentially teenagers go through a 4-year cycle of high school.
Right.
And if you get, you know, we went through a period once at New City where like every 2 years we were switching youth pastors and it was terrible. And my wife was really mad at me because I had teenagers in my house.
Yeah.
And they were suffering from inadequate ministry.
Right.
You'd have a guy here 2 years and then something would happen, you know, and some of it was the fault of the youth pastor. In other words, he didn't really know what he wanted to do with his life. And he came and he took the job and then he found out the job was hard, or he found out there was something more attractive somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then he abandoned our kids.
Right.
And so finding somebody who has, one, they feel it as a calling. They love young people.
Yeah.
And, you know, and they're, you know, it's a hard combination. Do they love Jesus? Do they know the word? Do they love young people? Are they people of integrity? And do they have the kind of skills to interact with teenagers and the administration skills to run a ministry? I mean, that's a big package.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 youth ministers in the 30 years that I've been here. Only most of them were very good at what they did, and one of them left because they got married and they left Boston. You can't do anything there. The other one grew and got married and actually went to another church and then left the state. I had one who was very talented. He's pastor. He's an associate pastor at a church. I can't tell you what state he's in, but it's a mega church, and he's doing very, very, very well. But while he was here with me, it was terrible because he was formerly in a gang, and he led the youth ministry like it was a gang, and everybody's loyalty was to him. And he would say, "I don't like the prayer meetings," so the kids never came to the prayer meetings. At 12th Baptist Church, the largest number of people who came to the prayer meetings were young people at 12. Because we said, if you're going to be a part of this youth ministry, if you're going to be a part of hanging out with us on Friday night, you have to come to the prayer meeting. So, and those kids pray today. So this person eventually left and got a church out of state. I think he only had the church for about a year, and then they let him go. Since then, he's, again, very successful now. He's been back to this church to apologize to me for his behavior. And he's learned a lot of lessons in life. And he's now a better man and a better pastor because he's learned the lessons and he's asked for forgiveness. But again, choosing a youth pastor that's going to be with you, that's an important, that decision is, I'll be careful. That decision is very close to the decision to call the pastor to the church.
Absolutely.
That's critical.
It's crucial. And the question is godliness. The first question is, does this person tell the truth? Are they able to keep their word? Because if they make a commitment, the first time a better option comes along, you got to say, wait a minute, we talked about this. And so one of the best guys we ever had was, he was older. He wasn't in his 20s, he was in his 30s.
Okay.
And he came down to be, he was an assistant pastor for youth at first. He eventually got promoted to associate pastor, but he was wonderful because he really discipled teenagers. He built into small groups, into small group Bible studies. He had mission trips. He had youth group meetings, but he was a more mature guy. So he really counseled and cared about young people. You get a younger guy, maybe he's 4 or 5 years older than the teenagers he's working with.
Yeah.
And he's all fun and games,
Yeah.
But he may not have the godliness or the spiritual maturity to
Yeah.
really mentor young people.
Yeah.
And one of the great temptations of youth ministry is trying to be cool, trying to appeal to young people because you're cool. And that's actually not what they need,
Right.
And I think the other thing that you need to focus on is that when I came back and I would work with the youth for a while, is that I would ask them what they wanted to do for activities, and some of their activities that they wanted was different than the activities that we loved as teenagers. So like where we enjoyed going bowling or going skating or something like that. And I remember asking, well, what is it that you want to do? Well, we want to go to the mall. And it was like, what? And we couldn't get that in our heads. Like, how could you find, fun and excitement by just going to a mall, sitting there for a couple of hours? And
or playing video games,
Yeah, there you go. Oh yeah. Oh Lord, yeah. That was it. And I couldn't grasp that. So what I did, Randy, I started doing some of the things that we did. One thing that I found very successful with young people was playing the game Fox and Hounds. It was Bruce, if you don't know what Fox and Hounds are.
I don't.
It was like a large hide go seek. And it was done as a group. And they started to enjoy it. And they said, oh, yeah, let's do that. And I would take them to the Palisades in New Jersey and said, okay, we're going to break up in a group, and they're going to be the foxes, and the other folks are going to be the hounds. And they did that, and they enjoyed it, and I got a big kick out of it. So
Stephen, when Pastor Wilcox brought the group, the young people, the Conquerors Club, the 12th Baptist Church, I think that was the first time I met you or saw you. Is that true or not true?
Yeah.
Because there was no occasion. We hadn't gone to New Jersey prior to you folk coming first. You came first, and it had to be through Reverend Haynes. I don't know where he met Grover Wilcox at, but how did they come together?
He told me that there was that he met Rev he had gone up to Barrington College for some type of program, and that's where they met.
Okay.
And
Right.
you know, that's what I'm told.
Uh,
But
well, question for Randy. Randy, did you come to 12th Baptist Church on the day that the Conquerors Club came?
I remember going up to Boston with the gospel team, and I'm not sure which trip that I actually met Dr. Haynes or went to 12th Baptist. I remember being there for worship and hearing the youth choir sing.
Okay.
Oh man, that was awesome. It just really pumped me up to hear them sing the gospel. And then later, of course, I was up there with Elward Ellis at a couple of conferences he did.
Yes.
And had some conversations with Reverend Haynes.
Okay.
But
okay.
Those are my memories.
Well, when the Conquerors Club came to 12th Baptist Church, they sang, and that I saw Stephen. I don't know what his specific role was, but he had to be in some kind of a leadership role. And I always crack jokes with him about him playing. He played the guitar, right? So that's the first time I saw him play the guitar. But the Conquerors Club, I saw the singing, I heard the singing. I don't think I went out to the street because I think you went out to the street. I know there was sometimes you're out in the street in Boston. That so impressed me and raised the level of my consciousness regarding what additional we could push our young people to do when I saw the Conquerors Club doing that witness. And so the end result of that is that we ended up going down to the quote unquote, the projects down the street from our church. And we started going down there on an annual basis, playing games with kids. I brought part of the youth group is that you had to go down to the projects and hang out with the kids and play ball or whatever and minister and witness. That all came from Calvary Gospel Church and seeing Stephen and seeing your pastor. And I couldn't wait until we could come. I wanted to go to New Jersey because I wanted to see where all this was coming from. You know,
right.
What is that church like? Because it really made a difference in my life. Made a significant difference.
Well, it sure made a difference in our lives.
Amen. Amen. And remember, there was the Conquerors Club, which was the youth ministry of the church. And in the Conquerors Club was the gospel team.
The gospel team too.
Yeah, they were the evangelistic arm of the church, and a powerful group of young people. So that when I first came to the Calvary Gospel in '67, I was amazed, you know, that and this white man was leading them.
Right. That's the other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was totally amazed, and in many respects, he really, you know, involved himself in the lives of those people on gospel team. For homes of where maybe there was just a mother, he became the father, and did a lot for them, good and bad. But
when you say bad, not sexually immoral or anything like that.
No, never like that. Yeah. And he really protected himself in terms of not getting thrown in a situation like that, having somebody in the van with him when he took kids home.
Yeah.
And you know, which was wise, you know, absolutely, you know. And then there came a period when he left, and being the time that I came back, he had a couple, and they were Rhonda and Hilliard Davis, and they were the couple, and they had the Conquerors Club and didn't do that much. But the gospel team was the strong arm, and
Yeah.
you know, this couple led that, and then when I came back in '93, I wanted to do, you know, Conquerors Club. I wanted to have activities and stuff like that. And in a lot of ways, we did well with that. And we brought on people, but none that was willing to take the role of a youth pastor. And, you know, I believe that was my mistake. And, you know, I,
Let's
I,
talk. Let's
go
talk a
ahead.
little bit about what it takes to get a good youth pastor.
Mm.
And I would say one of the things is a decent salary.
You go. Yeah.
You
And
know,
that was so that was null and void down here. You know, no, 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 no. That was that was like when the Corey Baker left the ministry, or I'm sorry, left being a mayor and moved on up. You know, you know, salary. What? That's persona non grata. You know,
You know,
and
that has been the drawback right now to us having a youth pastor is not having the cash flow to do it. Number one. One of the recommendations I made to the church, not to the entire church, but some of the leaders, is that I said, this is how I put it, and I would consider retiring to do my work here at the radio station, take half of what you give me as a pastor and use that half for a youth pastor. But you know, but we haven't been able to really work out the details. That's kind of in my mind because again, I don't want to leave a legacy of not seeing a youth ministry in the church, but I've got to deal with that because I don't want that to be ego. You know, I was looking at the scripture verse while you guys were talking, Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse number 3. There is a season for everything, a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born, time to die, a time to plant, and a time to uproot. And, you know, this may not be the season for our church to have the type of thriving youth ministry that my ego, my id wants. You know, maybe that's something that's going to come with the next administration that comes in here. So I want to be careful that I'm not being selfish and self-centered in saying we got to have a big youth ministry before I leave. You know, I don't want to say that, and I don't want that to happen. I want to know what season I'm in first, and secondly, I want to know what is the season of this church, because this season is going to continually change. What do you guys think about it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. You know what's so funny about that is that when I came, no, this is when I was up here as a youth minister. I was making a whopping $33.30 a week, and that wasn't to do youth ministry. That was as as the as the church janitor. I got that whopping $33 and 30 cents a week, and I was married. They let us live in the house that we live in now. So that was, you know, something. But it's true. You gotta have financial resources, and it's so funny about this that when I went down to Virginia at Norfolk State, I met this girl who liked to work with kids. And do you know what that Russ was doing now? She wrote a book on how to do church ministry with you. And I just heard about it. So she says, "Oh, I got you in the book and everything," and I had just brought the things that we were doing in Newark down to Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was good. I like that. I like that. But again, I was getting more money, but to do campus ministry, and that was a big part of my life. The 12 years.
You guys
Well,
keep talking. I got to run to answer the door. Keep talking.
Well, in terms of financing a youth ministry, there are a couple of things that a church needs to think about. One is, how do we stretch our budget to do it? How do we, or do we challenge the person to say, would you help raise your own support? Be here like a missionary, where you send out letters and ask people if they would support the youth ministry here. And the other reality is, you have to ask the question, which youth are we going to focus on? Because the church will have families, and sometimes as their children grow up in the church, when they become teenagers, they would really like the church to have a youth group. Right. But the conflict in our churches is, especially in inner city church, is that a lot of our youth ministry was evangelistic. We were going after non-church families and bringing their teenagers into the youth group. And sometimes there's conflict between church kids and community kids. And so we've had to deal with that for years at New City, deciding who's your target, or how do you help your kids in the church have a concern and a compassion for neighborhood kids who aren't reached yet with the gospel.
Right. That's a tough question. And in regards, I lost Bruce, and I hear your voice, Randy, but there's no picture of you. But
yeah, I know. I'm trying to bless you by not having you look at me today.
Oh, that's what it is. Oh, I figured as much.
But I'm here, so I'm listening.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that blessing.
Oh, okay.
What? It's open. It's open season now.
Yeah. Yeah, bring it, Bruce.
Yeah, Randy, because he feels so much like that we're just attacking him, and he has a problem with that. So,
but I don't know, Bruce, if you heard what I said, but I was talking about the dynamic sometimes of which youth do you focus on? Do you focus on the youth who grew up in the church, who are now teenagers, or are you focused evangelistically, going out to reach young people in the neighborhood? And are you able to integrate both of these kinds of kids, because they're different? One is a church culture kid, the other is a street culture kid, and they don't necessarily always mix.
That's right.
Yeah, you better believe it, because when I came to this church, I had a church that was based in a police station. And so all of those kids came over to the church. And when they came over to this church, they had a youth group. They had two parents that were leading a nice little youth group down in the basement. And when my predators came in from the police station with their hoodies on and their dungarees, there was a clash. And the kids in that youth group were not trained to be outreach workers and evangelize. So they ended up leaving the youth group. The parents were pulling their kids. So if I had understood better what was going to happen, and I didn't anticipate this, because at 12 Baptist Church, most of the kids who came into the church, there was a healthy mixture of church kids and the street kids, and there were more church kids than street kids, so the street kids never overwhelmed the church kids, and eventually they became friends. And so when you had the integration of church kids and street kids, then together they go out and they bring other people in. Then you got your first line of defense of the street kids that are in the church, working with the kids in the church to reach the street kids when they came in. But I didn't see it. I didn't see it at this church, and so we lost a lot of the kids that were here prior to my young people coming in, and then my kids that were coming in became offended by how they felt they were being treated by the people in the church. So we lost some of them. This is a whole delicate thing, and I couldn't make the transition in my brain between changing to accommodate both parties, because the kids in this church were not like the kids at 12th Baptist Church. They had no idea what the street kids were all about. And, and that was foreign to me. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, do you remember one time I came up there and, you know, and one of the folks had a gun and brought it to you? Something like that. You remember that?
A gun?
Yeah.
You were there when that happened?
Yeah.
Because I remember a young kid on the local street brought me a gun, and I took the gun and I told the kid to go into his house, and if this is the one, and I put the gun, I took my fingerprints off of it, and I put the gun on the street, and I called the police and said, I found the gun, and they came and retrieved the gun. Were you there for the retrieval, or that was not you?
No, no, I wasn't there for the retrieval. I was just when you had told me what you were planning to do with it.
I told you if you mess with me, I told you I wanted all your money now.
There you go. Right. And you would have been very insulted with all of my money. So, the only ways we got to do those trips was that we had each kid had to get from their parents or from a bank or what, you know, had to give me a certain amount of money to make those trips, and that money was for gas and, you know, and stuff like that. But you know, I think I've done this church bad. How do I want to put it? That I didn't work with the youth younger or older than. I just feel that I did a bad disservice to them, and I guess that's gonna bother me till I see Jesus, you know. But I felt that they should have gotten more from me.
Well, you know, one of the things that I hate to do, and I would hate us all to do, is to look back. Hindsight is 20/20. To look back and say, I should have done this, or I could have done that better. You know, I struggle with that because I have to deal with that. Should I have retired from the court and come to the church full time, or should I have stayed at the court, utilized the financial resources from that court, so I wouldn't have to take anything from the church, and we could have used the church's money to hire a youth pastor and do other things. And I have to blow that out of my mind. I have to say, I'm at this period in my life. There's too much reflection going on here. Stop with all this reflection, because where you are now and how you see it is a whole lot different than how you saw it back then. And you only could make a decision in the context of who you were back then and what you can see. And I move on.
Right.
Because otherwise, carrying that today would break me, quite frankly.
Yeah. I do want to say that I think we need to be more optimistic about what is possible for youth ministry.
Okay.
I do think, I think there's money. I think you just got to go raise it. And I think there are people who would love to put money into youth ministry if they felt it was effective and really reaching kids. And outside your church, I think, the businesses in your community, even the government, there are funds that you ought to tap and collaborate to say, we have got to reach young people, whether it's the YMCA, the Boys Club, Salvation Army, whatever, but everybody is this is a perpetual problem, is how do we deal with our teenagers? How do we deal with young people in a constructive and positive way? And the way the world deals with it is they say, oh, whatever they want, if they want a sex change, then we got to honor that.
Yeah.
If they want to live immorally, we got to honor that.
Yeah.
And the answer is, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Young people need a higher standard. They need an accountability. They need models of godliness and morality lived out in front of them, as well as social engagement with each other. One of the great things that happened to us in high school and then even in college, as we participated as leaders, was to be in a group of young people who loved each other, who became friends and loyal to each other and protected each other. Our protection wasn't just adults who kept us from doing bad stuff. Our protection were our peers who were challenging us. You can do this. You can live for Christ. You can hear the word. You can grow. That really helped us.
Right.
Oh, it certainly, reached me because, Brother Wilcox was the type of person that, oh no, you can't do anything that involves the government because, almost like they're evil and stuff like that, but, like what Randy said in terms of, them going out for support and looking at what the government can do and everything, that we was told, no, don't do that stuff because they're evil and, they're going to want this from you and want that from you. And that wasn't the truth. That was a lie that they told us because, there are people in the government who might have, might want to do something different. But, we're supposed to be believers. And why don't we, reach them? And that has destroyed many of the, well, I'll say this. Our Christian school that we had that had functioned for 40 years. And, when they got into financial trouble because they didn't do it right. They didn't, they thought that everybody in the government was evil and, don't do this and don't do that. And that kind of like broke us in a lot of ways.
Well, guys, I just want you to know I'm down here in North Myrtle Beach in South Carolina for a few days with my grandchildren. So while I'm kicking back and enjoying it, I will think of you hard at work in the big cities. And, may God bless you.
That's cold. That's cold. And I want you both to know that I am in South Africa. I will be, we have 1 minute. So let me get this lie out. I will be preaching. Yeah. I will be preaching on this beach. You see the water, the people will come and stand in the water. They don't even bring chairs. They heard that I'm here. They're making a pilgrimage to the beach. To hear me today.
I'm in San Francisco. So,
both of y'all need to get saved. You just can't tell the truth for trying.
Well, no, can't you see the Golden Gate Bridge behind me?
Stephen, the only problem with your lie, and I'm gonna ask Randy to pray us out. The only problem with your lie is that the water isn't moving at all. Okay. So the water is like still. It's the same water every single week, so that lie won't fly.
I like to live in San Francisco.
Okay.
Stephen, pray us out. I'm not Stephen.
We're gonna
Randy.
Father God,
Yes, Lord.
thank you for my brothers. Please protect them, bless their marriages, bless their ministries.
Yes, Lord.
And Father, please bring us youth pastors and youth ministers and youth workers